Dear listeners of the Female Guides Requested podcast, happy Wednesday. This is your host Ting Ting, and our guest today is Julia Niles. Julia was the first woman to solo the Grand Traverse in a day, as well as part of the first all-female ski descent of the Grand Teton. She has guided Denali and Aconcagua, climbed El Capitan multiple times, and put up first ascents and descents in the Canadian Rockies, Wyoming, and South Africa. Julia's mountain prowess eventually earned her the title of Certified AMGA, IFMGA mountain guide. She was the fifth American woman to reach this status. Right now, Julia lives in Squamish, BC, Canada, with her two children. She is an athlete for Arcteryx and splits her time between guiding, parenting, and her new counseling business, Mountain Mindset. I have heard impressive stories about Julia, about her gnarly achievements in the mountains and about her toughness. So I was nervous to even contact her for an interview, but I was so glad I did. She was fabulous. During this interview, she offered thoughtful answers, shared relatable life experience. Listening to her calm and soft voice, I could sense this inner strength and her love towards mountains and the people she worked with. I loved this interview. We talk about guiding, of course, but at the end, I realized what we really talk about was life. I don't even know how to summarize this, and I think it's totally worth your time to listen to this episode from the very beginning to the end. Trust me on this one and enjoy. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to do this podcast.
Yes. I'm nervous a little bit.
Oh, why are you nervous? I'm actually nervous myself, but I try to talk to people, say this is just a friendly chat conversation. So trying to ease myself up and also help the other party to be more relaxed, because I think a lot of people really want to know your stories. You have a long career so far, right? How many, is that like over 20 years that you have been guiding, right?
Yeah, well, if you count like when I started trip leading, because I took kids hiking in the Adirondacks, so I wasn't really guiding yet. But I was helping out the other trip leader who was like starting a rock climbing program. So it started at 17, kind of.
Yeah. And 17, that was like fun, like, and you are still very young, so
Yeah,
it's kind of hard
yeah,
to imagine you already have this long career.
yeah. I mean, that was 1997 when I was 17. It's kind of a long time ago. Thank you. That's very nice to call me young. I feel like I'm right sort of in the middle, and as a guide, sort of in the older side of things at this point.
uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, nowadays I see a lot of older people still ripping in like the mountains. So I mean, you are like not even close that age. So definitely, it's very young.
Yeah.
And so I have a bunch of questions. There's a lot of, but I would love to know how you like started your outdoor pursuit. So I learned that you start playing in the outdoor very young, but what kind of inspired you to stay there, and how did it all start?
Mm. Uh, Excellent question. Um, I would say probably the the most important influence of my outdoor career was my grandfather. Um, and he died when I was 17. Um, but he spent his life building cabins from scratch. So we built two, one in Vermont and one in Driggs, Idaho. And the one in Driggs, Idaho, we still own and I go to sometimes. It was sort of why I ended up in Jackson, guiding for Jackson Hole Mountain Guides. Um, and yeah, he was just like a total mountain man. He got us into horseback riding and caving and skiing, and he was kind of hardcore. Like when he was young, he would get all his kids skiing, and it was like the hardcore program. They would show up before the lifts opened, and um, he would make everyone come back and have lunch on the tailgate. Like they weren't allowed in the lodges. And so from a very young age, he was just always getting us outdoors and facilitating, yeah, mountain adventures. So it was like that was the start. But then there was another very big formative one. It was an outward bound trip when I was 16, I think, and we were rock climbing in the Sierra Nevada, and one of the instructors said, so it was a month-long trip, and we're in the backcountry for a month. And that alone was just so awesome. And we're rock climbing, and one of the instructors is like, rock climbing is one of those sports that women are often just as good as men because they're using their grace and their footwork, and there's more to it than just raw power. And that to me was a pretty good hook. So
Nice. I would say that your instructor is kind of half correct because because I think women actually on rock climbing can be better.
exactly. Yeah. And he might have actually said that. I'm not sure exactly.
Right, of course.
I think that actually might be. I was just trying to be like gentle.
Uh, but I mean, I
No, but
understand. Yeah, like as a woman in this traditional men dominate world, I think early years people just say, oh, whatever men can do, women can do. But I think right now there's a trend which is like we are pretty independent. We don't have to compare to them. We can do what we wanted to do. I think. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Although, I mean, we can do what we want to do, but we have to factor in the fact that we have faced a lot of oppression along the way, and um, so we're not always going to match up. We don't have the same privileges and opportunities and
that is true.
support.
Yeah.
So
And that remind me that you have quite a resume. That
yeah.
I say you have quite a resume. Have all this gnarly first ascent, descent, and all the things. And back then, so we were talking about this men and women. Back then, did you even have the thought that okay, I kind of want to prove myself, or were you just kind of genuinely really enjoying that with kind of can put that aside?
Yeah. 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 I think the competitive part, the proving yourself, all that stuff is like a little bit um um been a miss for me. Like that's not why I was ever doing anything, um, any of my sports, although it was all around me. And so sometimes I would kind of get like caught up in the river of that. Um, just in the sense that like, oh wow, he's sponsored. He can do any of the trips he dreams up. What an amazing thing. And so that like just how much that would expand my opportunities was actually sort of seductive at various points. Um, and I did actually kind of go that way a couple of times. But it wasn't, I never was in it for the grade. I still am not. Like, I do it because it's actually really good for me to just be out there in the mountains and pushing myself and facing my limits and fears and having adventures and with my friends, and making new friends. So to me, that's really always been what it's about. Even at the beginning, like, yeah, I was drawn in sometimes to like doing bigger things, and having something maybe that's validated by the outside world that people could understand, like the Grand Teton. Everyone could kind of understand the Grand Teton, so it was easier to explain what I was doing to like family and friends. But, yeah. Yeah, I haven't ever really been that motivated by being um, the best or proving myself or being better than others. It's just been a calling for me.
Oh. And so, and when did you decide that you might want to be a guide?
It was pretty early. Like, I mean, I was young. I was climbing obsessively in university. Like, I went to Colorado College and it was 1998 and I had just done that outward bound course. And so I literally showed up to university like all I want to do is climb. And for the first 3 months, I climbed every single day.
Wow, every single day. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
going to imagine you don't
yeah.
even take a rest day.
It's the beauty of the block system. So we all had class from like 9 to noon, and then every student, so it wasn't just me, was free from noon on. And like,
Wow.
yeah, you're supposed to do your homework and you're in science labs and stuff. Um,
So you look like your early mountain days and then particularly that 1 month long in the backcountry really kind of have a
yeah,
very profound influence in you.
yeah,
So
yeah. Like really being, I mean, that back then we didn't have cell phones and well, we did, but it wasn't like it was impossible to disconnect from technology. So I don't think it was that, but I think I just felt more myself and I felt hopeful in the world. I think actually, to be honest, like I've used all this stuff as like a way to manage my own trauma and like coming like who am I really and what's worth living and in the mountains. I could answer those questions. Um,
I see. So you feel like being in the mountains, you have the challenge and the space, so then you can reflect upon and just be yourself, kind of.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think I just found a um something I could be doing where I just felt really good.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you want to be a guide. That means that you want to also bring that experience to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like and that's I think part of guiding is like it's like I just like being in the mountains and it's not always about doing the hardest or most rad thing. It's a lot of the time it's like really just enjoying. For example, I get a lot of pleasure out of just climbing easy routes in Squamish and guiding people up the Chief. And, you know, I've done a lot of those routes many, many, many times. And I just am in my happy place up there. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah, and then Mike kind of made me wonder. So I know that you also guide a lot of ski tours.
yeah,
So you also guide maybe alpine objective and also like rock climbing. Day trip, for example, in Squamish, I would
yeah,
say. So your guiding activities span a quite variety, but you just enjoy being there. But I found that a lot of clients come in to say have a guided day. They have this objective in mind. Say, okay, I want to summit. I want
yeah.
to get to the top. So how do you negotiate with that? Say if well because the weather or because whatever reason, then for them to have still a good experience at the end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just being a guide, like
Okay.
weather and conditions and abilities and reading all of that and managing people's expectations is like a giant part of the job. And I mean, that's not usually too hard. Most of the clients that I work with are really wonderful, reasonable people that understand the limits of, um, you know, themselves or conditions, or these days, other people in Squamish were really dealing with um, lineups on routes and stuff, and having to work with that. And, you show up to do a route I've gotten someone super excited about, and then there's 6 people lined up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So we changed plans. And, I don't find that that's actually that disappointing. Usually there's lots of other options. And
I see. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I noticed Squamish has been getting more and more popular
Mm-hmm.
uh, these recent years too. So negotiate with the crowd is always kind of like in the mind of guides.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I see. Let me just looking at my notes. Yeah. And so, can you describe a little bit of your pursuit of your pin? Because you are I think I researched online. You are the fifth female
Yeah. Yeah.
IFMGA mountain guide based in U.S. back
Yeah.
then. You based in
Yeah.
United States,
Yeah.
and I just
I
kind of can
tried.
imagine. I think right now, I think in the States probably only 20. I don't know the exact number, but there's still like not that many female
Yeah.
mountain guides.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems like there's been an acceleration in recent years, which is awesome. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think actually there's a lot of women in like specialty guides, and even in Canada, but fewer that like fully go for the full IFMGA. For me, um so I just wanted to clarify as well. I think it was that I tied with Angela Hawes, who is my mentor, and I got to do a bunch of exams and courses with her, and that was just such a pleasure. um
Nice. Yeah.
yes. And then yeah, so there were women that I got to do some of those things with, and that meant a lot. It was actually really nice to have some camaraderie in the process. Yeah, I was kind of lucky. I was a little bit early, so I think I could skip a couple of the early
Oh, so
courses.
back then you can still kind of challenge the
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I think I challenged the first alpine course and first rock course, and then yeah, it was, there were some ups and downs for sure. I mean, there there's probably lots of stories I could tell. I don't know if you want me to, but there's, it would take some honing in. It was really hard at some points. And then other points were just absolutely wonderful and glorious and joyful. And and then you really have to be clear about why you're doing what you're doing, and also manage your um, stress levels. I mean, those exams are hard, and examiners are all over the map. And at the time, I actually made some conclusions that I don't think are like the best conclusions. It's like I did a lot of like maybe acting more like a within the male value system, and maybe I think is healthy. Like I would project confidence, and do less collaborating with other people than I think I would naturally do in life, so that I could pass those exams. Um, a little bit, in general, we're taught like don't try to take the exam based on what you think the examiner wants. But at the time, there had to be a lot of that happening.
Yeah, and I
Just
think
because of,
nowadays probably it still happens. Like people
yeah,
will ask around, oh, my examiner is gonna be this person, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I had some amazing, like Art Mooney,
Oh,
Craig
Amoni, I have
Leeman.
him on my
Oh
exam as
yeah,
well.
I
Yeah.
mean, Colin Zacharias. Rob Hess. I mean, like some of my examiners were like just the best people in the world that I just still love and respect and admire. And then there were difficult personalities. It's like life, So like, we're just balancing all those things. Um,
Yeah, and I like
yeah,
the usage just like life, is
yeah,
yeah. Um,
yeah,
because I know that a lot of women, they came in and they would maybe the rock guide course or alpine course or whatever course, and they hesitant because they have one bad say encounter or something, and
yeah,
then because I people came to me, so I'm a SPI provider, and they came to me and telling me that, oh, the previous provider was like they have a scary or horrible experience, which was a little bit hard to imagine. And I mean, hopefully that was just a one-time
hmm,
experience. And so I was wondering that, how do you cope? Did you ever experience that? Just maybe a little bit second guessing, second doubting, and thinking about that. Oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. So how do you combat for maybe like for newer now female guys for them to
yeah,
navigate through this terrain?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think times are changing. I think for me personally, I was like so very motivated and um, I played in the mountains with a lot of the guides that I'd worked with and that were doing the courses. I felt entirely validated to be there. Like I didn't feel like I was, um, I may be overcompensated sometimes skill wise because I was a woman and I felt like I deserved to be there. And um, that doesn't mean that I wasn't hit with nerves in any given moment and day. Um, and then I actually can see that like confidence can be an issue, like because we don't see a ton of other female mountain guides out there, and so I think there are lots of different issues to address. And with the confidence, I think that it's just realizing like you're going to be you out there and you're going to bring to people, the examination process is actually very different from the guiding process.
It is, yes.
Why are you going to be a guide? It's actually a service industry job. You want to like people and to help people and to contribute to their day. Like you want to make their experience great. And so, how can you connect with them? How can you make sure that they feel safe, um, respected? Um, and do you have something to offer? And then the examination process is like a hoop to jump through if that's what you are sure you want to do. And I think you can do it in tons of different ways. Like you don't have to be the most technically competent to pass the exam. You just have to compensate for that somehow. Like you have to say, okay, like for me, I'm doing this because this is specifically how I want to guide and who I want to guide. And I'm very clear about that. Um, and the hoops that you have to jump through if that's, um, say for example, you're not as technically competent with the rescue skills. You're gonna have to practice a whole lot more, and and maybe hire another guide for a little bit, right? So I think it is good to go into it as prepared as you can because the exam stress is real.
Yes.
It's a lot, and it's like a lot all at once. You're exhausted, and you still have to do it again the next day and the next day.
Yeah, I like the way you say that it's like guiding is a service industry. But those things that we are not exempt during our assessments in the exams,
Yeah.
they pretty much assess the technical component because it's always contrived to serve the examiners to, so
Well,
it's
and this
not
is the
real.
problem with
Yeah.
the whole thing is that like we're not actually it's sort of a soft skill
Mm-hmm.
career. it's all about people. It's all about how you connect to people, how you make them feel, and are you lifting them up? Are you breaking them down? And it's not presented through the. It's actually a flaw of the IFMGA or the
Oh,
AMGA to not actually focus on how to, you know, like the. I think in the examination process they do say client care, right? Client care.
yes.
That's like more like, did you stop for lunch? Which actually I failed on once. So, we were climbing the north ridge of Mount Baker. I remember I was like getting so stressed. I was like getting a cold sore, and, it was like, I think we were struggling with weather. So we were moving all around. And so we're on Mount Baker. It's the end of the exam. And it's like, September, and we're doing the complete North Ridge of Baker. So it's like, it's all ice. Like it's just like 18 pitches of ice climbing, which is not a problem for me. Like I love that. I was like having a great time guiding, but you know, apparently telling my clients, my fake clients, right? And this is the
Right,
problem. They're fake
exactly right.
clients. Like they actually are. This is always when I sort of failed in my exam process, is that I couldn't, I don't play games. Like I couldn't
Yeah, I mean, you
and
have to pretend that
that
they
they
can't
weren't who
move,
they were.
right?
Yeah. So they're competent people. I'm like, when you're not belaying and you're at the belay, eat your food. you know, it's a big day. We're not gonna
Yes.
like stop for lunch, but I won't
I,
name names, but my examiner wasn't pleased with that. Apparently it was a problem. I don't know. Sometimes I felt like I was getting picked on, but not really, like not with most people. With actually, I think a lot of times I was actually really lucky to be female. Like I got early on, it was before they stopped giving scholarships.
oh, okay.
They
Yes.
they gave they for me, I got a lot of scholarships. Like every single thing that I did, I got a scholarship for. Whereas after I went through the program, they only gave a person one scholarship each.
I see. Wow.
So
Yeah.
I got very lucky financially with it as well. So um,
Yeah, I like you say the client care because I was also got criticized about my client care and I can't coach them their movement. I mean they can
uh-huh.
freaking solo that terrain. So um
I know.
so
How do you, what like you have no trouble with this? So why should I like try and contrive that you're just some random client who has no ability? And all clients have different abilities too. So
yeah.
you just work with what you have, and
And yeah, and then like that you point out that that might be the flaw that the IFMGA or AMGA they present that this mountain guiding is all about hard skill, or maybe that's not their intention, but certainly a lot of people not getting
yeah,
the complete
yeah,
image
yeah.
of the
And
soft
you have
skill.
to have those hard skills.
Yes,
So
for
that's
sure.
important. Yeah.
And yeah, and you also mentioned that so you did a lot of your courses exam with Angela Haas, and
Mhm.
she's fantastic, and I also
Mhm.
need to interview her.
You really do.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
can you describe it how with that um, camaraderie and mentorship kind of play a part in your whole process?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it was kind of cool, a cool progression because I had just heard of her. She was like legendary when I started guiding. I started guiding at American Alpine Institute in 2000,
Mm-hmm.
um, and went through their like in-house training program. And she had been guiding there, I think, way before me. And, you know, I was like aware of the other women around me. There weren't many of them. And sometimes, not always, like there were actually a lot of really wonderful, friendly women. Sometimes women were like a little like competitive or like, oh, you're stepping on my toes sort of vibe. Um, and so, I'd like admire people from afar, but not know what they would be like when I met them. Um, And Angela is one of those people that when I finally met her, and I actually literally, I think I still remember, we were in Jackson and uh, happened to cross paths in the park. And she was so wonderful and gracious. And she was like, "Yeah, I've heard of you too." And yeah, that was really sweet. And so I really valued her experience. And then, and then we started doing these exams and courses together, and thoughtfulness and care, and also um, respected how she had, um, you know, pushed through the ranks as a woman, and not a big woman either, like, and yeah, she was wonderful. I remember we did shucksin together in an alpine exam and stayed in a tent together. And on the way down, she had a knee injury or something, and everyone was off ahead, and we just hiked in the back together, and you know connected and talked, and just having those little moments with people, and like realizing like, oh yeah, it's not actually about who's going fastest, and yeah, really kind of challenging those values, I think, in the AMGA and AMGA. I think it's really good. Yeah.
Nice. And so back then, did you seek out mentors, or you just kind of just happen?
Yeah, I was like immersed. I was 100% obsessed with climbing and skiing, and was just immersed. Like I hung out with a lot of guides, and yeah, back then. Um, yeah, so I mean, my mentors were both mentors and peers. A lot of them. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess I would seek them out in the sense that I knew when to show respect and ask questions, and did a lot of that. Yeah,
Nice.
and did a lot of observing, and I loved working with other guides early on. I still do. I'm a work in progress. I'm always trying to learn. And so yeah, I work with other guides as much as I possibly can, because I learn way more and faster. And
Yeah. And so I noticed is one thing that at one point you lost a lung.
yeah,
Yeah, and then that story, I just it's a little bit hard to imagine. I know that many athletes and guys, they always worry about getting injured. They are very careful about injuries, and then a lot of time the injury can last weeks, even months, and then they have to negotiate their career path because they can't guide and yada yada and all that. How did that happen, and how did you cope with that?
yeah. Well, yeah, the lung story was pretty profound, because I was like, at the time, fully immersed in like a high altitude mountain guiding um, career. So it was quite shocking. Um, Although I had just started law school, so I was always trying to like get a real job. That didn't last. I didn't stay at law school. Um, but it is actually, I just finished a master's of counseling. So I am
Nice.
starting another job now,
So
because
that
I
would be your
think
real
it's,
job.
yeah, because I mean, because of this thing, like with the lung, like I'm very aware that I could get injured, and I'm, a single parent, and I need to always make money. Like I can't just not be employed. And so, yeah, as a contractor, which is what a lot of us guides are, we're not covered if we get injured. Um, so, so yeah, I have a backup plan now.
What?
But
It's nice. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'll tell the story of the lung
Okay.
thing. So I was there were multiple signs for about 2 years. Like I had some like weird lung things. Like I'd wake up in the middle of the night coughing for no reason, like I wasn't sick and that sort of thing. And then, I really wanted to do randonnée rallies, like racing on touring gear. Um, and then I remember not entering a race because I just wasn't breathing right. And um, I would wheeze sometimes, and I'm used to being really fit. Like, we used to just race up mountains. Like that was like sort of the joy, was to, like, when we were hiking Glory, we would like constantly try and catch the next person. It was like fun to be fit and move fast in the mountains. Um, and I was less and less able to do that. And then I was guiding Denali and ended up having to take a round of antibiotics at 14 camp. So what was happening was I had about 90% of my left lung blocked by this tumor. And uh, I couldn't exhale all of the little particles that normally we cough up really quickly. So my lungs were just mostly the left one was getting infected, but then it would move to the right one as well. So I had bronchitis basically at 14,000 feet. And so I took a round of antibiotics and then kept going.
Ooh.
And ended up having, successfully getting my rope team to the summit and back down. But it was really hard for me. It was way hard. Like normally altitude sort of was like no big deal. And I think I must have been 25. And it was hard. It was like really hard. I remember coming down and sort of crying. I remember at one point I was guiding with Bean Bowers. Yeah, sorry, he was the wonderful guide who has passed. Good friend. And I remember like, because he kind of like was, you know, had no tolerance for weakness. And I remember I was like really worked as we got up to high camp. And I was just like, how can I rest? I need to rest somehow. So I was like, I'll do the stoves. And I gathered up all the stoves and started heating up water because I needed a job that was, not building tent platforms and being super active. But yeah, I came down and I remember going off to the edge of the world, this little lookout, and just crying. Wow, that was like really epic. Something's wrong. And I got down at the end of that trip. And I don't have a lot of weight to lose to start with. And like I could see every single rib. Like I had lost 25 pounds or something. And yeah, so it was like something was wrong. And then it was like 8 rounds of pneumonia and bronchitis and no health insurance. I had no health insurance because I'm a contractor and I'm young and I'm healthy. And I was like, yeah, Obamacare didn't exist yet. So I luckily started law school. And so I got the student insurance, which kind of finally got me into getting more testing on my lungs. And a bronchoscopy showed that I had a lung tumor, and I, ended up, yeah, after 2 years discovering that I was, had a tumor and was going to have to, the first doctor was like, oh yeah, we're going to have to take out your lung. And then we found a better doctor that was like, well, we'll do our best to take out half. Well, you have to remove the whole Y junction, but we're going to try and sew the upper lobe back on to the bronchus stem. So it was a pretty advanced surgery for the time. And that's what happened. And they went in there not knowing if it was going to be benign or malignant, and it was benign. So I was very lucky. Like it was just sort of the best case scenario. And I still have half a lung on the left side, which is really great because I think with one lung I might have had to change careers pretty fast. But I used to say, yeah, I'm still keeping up with the boys. So yeah.
Well, wow, that was quite a story. It was like you pushed through all this Denali expedition, guided people up to the summit and everything. So during the whole time that you didn't reveal to your teammate that you were having big issues with your breathing and everything?
Well, I mean, I took a round of antibiotics. I might have been like, oh yeah, I have this cough. I didn't even know.
I
I had
see.
no idea, right? Like I had no idea what was wrong with me. So
Right.
yeah.
And at
Yeah.
that time, you could just like maybe this time you have more issue with the altitude. Maybe like I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's random. Like it hits people randomly sometimes. Like if you have a slight cold and you start going up to altitude, you'll react totally differently than someone who doesn't, even if you're really fit. Like fitness does help, but yeah, so I didn't know why I wasn't strong.
Yeah, I mean, at least I was glad that you were strong and young at that time. That so, I
Yeah.
think that played a very big part that you have been always fit. So,
Yeah. But it was
yeah.
also why doctors never were like, oh, maybe we should do more than just an x-ray. Because
Oh,
for
yeah,
2 years, I kept ending up in the hospital. Like I had 8 emergency room visits because of pneumonia, basically. And
right,
they would like send me away with asthma medicine. And some they would take x-rays, but x-rays didn't show tumor. And so
right. Whew, wow.
yeah, I
And
needed more testing, which people weren't going to do when I had no health insurance. So
exactly, yeah, that was like another hard. Well, now we have Obamacare. I mean, affordable care, so it helped a
yeah.
little bit, but it's still kind of there that as a guy, that a lot of them don't have health insurance and stuff.
Oh yeah. And like, guides having children, a female guide having children, like I mean these situations are really hard. Most people, when I was a guide, would kind of like be a guide for a couple years and then become a nurse or a physician's assistant, or they would just move on, or photographer or something, because it was pretty low pay. This is actually kind of funny. When I started guiding, I was making $65 a day guiding 5 people up Mount Baker. I think that's so funny.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So yeah, so with that, so during that time you were in law school, uh,
Yeah.
and trying to get better with your lung situation. Did you still guiding? Like, were you still guiding?
Well, no, I guided the summer before law school started, and then I went to law school for only one semester
Oh, okay.
because the second semester I went out on my um, medical leave. So I went on disability leave
I see.
for a year with the idea that I would go back. And then I moved to Canada instead. And so, and went back to guiding. I think the whole experience made me like really realize that I needed to live um, in the moment and take charge of every moment. Like I couldn't not guide. I couldn't not be in the mountains at that time. It was so healing for me. So
I
I
see.
continued guiding and finished more of my certifications. I remember I think I did my alpine exam very shortly, like 6 months after my surgery or less. Um,
And hopefully Canada has a better health system, right?
yes, it does. And I have appreciated it greatly. It is definitely an amazing thing to know that I can like have kids, have my kids covered. Um, if something goes really wrong, I don't have to look at the possibility of being in debt, my family going into debt.
And yeah, I think that might be a good gateway because it's quite impressive that you raised 2 kids. Uh, I read the article. I think they are what older now. I forgot. Maybe I saw
They're
this
13
art.
and 10.
Okay, 13 and 10. Yeah, and
Mhm.
so you have them for quite a while, and
Yeah.
and for the
Yeah.
whole time you were still guiding. And I think I want to dig a little bit deep. I don't have kids. I only have cats. Uh, and I already feel like it's really hard
It's
enough.
still work as a guide. I don't think like I now have a dog. She's amazing. But I
And
always was like I can't get a dog until I have kids. I gotta wait till
yeah.
I'm already locked in.
Huh?
Yeah.
and and so it's like it's kind of nice you are a living proof that female guides can have kids. And I know
Mhm.
that I have interviewed two other female guides and who raised a kid, and her daughter was 6-year-old Andrea in the East Coast, and also Miranda who just had a kid.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, but it's still, I think it's a little bit scary because they have to do a lot of adjustments,
Hmm.
and then maybe things will come up, and then back then they have more time to do big objectives, and then feel like maybe a little could have a little loss of identity a little bit, and then was focus on the kids, and yada yada. I mean, the funny thing is I don't even know how to ask questions on this topic,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I don't have personal experience.
Well,
So
let me
yeah,
talk to it a little
yeah,
bit
mm-hmm.
because it was interesting. Um, this was probably an accident, but I went to the AMGA meeting when Kodiak was a baby. He was like a 4-month-old infant, and we're in Boulder, Colorado, and they're taking photos of all of the mountain guides, and I had Kodiak strapped on, and I was on the edge, and they cut me out of
What?
the photo
Okay.
that was published. And I wonder if they just thought or just assumed because I was like, some random woman with a baby that I wasn't meant to be in the photo, wasn't really a mountain guide or
Huh.
whatever. I'm not sure.
Right.
But yeah, it was so I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. Like there's one, the perception. Like as soon as I had kids, I remember having a few of my older friends be like, "You're still working?" You know, just couldn't figure out how I would keep doing it. And other ones, yeah, where yeah, of course I would keep working. And yeah, I stepped back quite a bit. Like I went into very part-time work some of those years, which was good. And it's not that I lost my identity, I gained a new identity. I became mom, and that's my primary identity. And so everything's shifted. I mean, they're my number one everything. Um, and it's a lot, and they're a lot. And so I still am totally a climber and a mountaineer and a skier and a guide. And I'm balancing all of that. And so those early years were really hard because I kind of thought nothing was going to change and everything changed. So like I went into it with all of this like enthusiasm and like I'll make it work. I'll just do everything. Um, and my son had a ton of separation anxiety early on, and so it became really clear that it wasn't really okay for me to go away. Um, and so I went away less and less, and um, just tried to find day work. And day work has been awesome. There's lots of, I live in a really good place for that. So,
Yes.
um, and then I still did some really special uh, trips, but um, a lot fewer. And I missed it. I did actually have a huge loss and like a constant, I kind of say I'm always like slightly frustrated with my climbing goals and career and whatever, because I always want to do more. I'll like start a project, almost send, and then life gets in the way and I'm doing something else. But in a way, that's like that's almost the beauty of the whole thing. Like I'm actually balancing it. It's not an obsession. It's not more important. Climbing is not more important than my kids. It just isn't. It won't ever be. And so um, I think it's maturity to not be so obsessed that I'm throwing down every other possible goal in my life um, or I'm not throwing down my priorities so that I can, send my proj. But I do sometimes miss sending my proj. I'm always wanting to climb more. Like it's my joy and my happiness and my happy place. And um, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess this is life. You just have to pick your priority at that moment. And then right now your priority is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so right now, I'm divorced. So I have my kids week on, week off. And on the week on, if I don't have support, I kind of can't work, or that's the way it's been. Um, because guiding work doesn't actually fit daycares. So without a nanny or a family, um, it's so just to like put the struggle really clear, like it's extremely stark. Like I would be a negligent parent, less so as they're aging. Like I've started to actually work sometimes when they're around. I just arrange play dates and stuff, but it has to be rare. Otherwise, I'll be like a play date arranging um, whirlwind. It's like another whole job. So, but up until about this year, it's like I either have my mother around, have a hired babysitter, and why would I hire a babysitter and pay them almost as much as I make in that day, right? Um, or they're with their dad. So now I have this, um, trade off and balance. And it's so, yeah, it makes work really hard. I've had a lot of support. My mother lives here about 6 months of the year now. It's been amazing. But there's a lot of time when managing is a struggle. Yeah.
Right.
And figuring out how to work. And so that's part of it, is that guiding work, the hours are really long. So they don't fit into any daycare hours or after school and before school hours. And so like in the winter when I'm ski guiding, I have to show up at a morning meeting in Whistler at 7 a.m. So I'm leaving here at 6 a.m. I often don't get home until 6 p.m. because there's an evening meeting. And that's a really long work day. So I am excited about having my new counseling business because I can work within school hours. I mean, what a beauty and gift that is to be able to, yeah.
And wow. So, yeah, tell me more about your new career. So, how did you get
Yeah.
into counseling
Yeah.
instead of like keeping on your law school path?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, um, yeah, the law school I wanted to be an environmental lawyer. I wanted to help change I wanted to have the power to change people's behavior. So I thought that becoming a lawyer would help with that. And then, yeah, I became a counselor living a lot, I guess. I always kind of have had a habit in my life of jumping in feet first to things, and it's given me quite a lot of experience. And I've been through a lot at this point, and I've seen a lot of family suffering or friends suffering, and um, I yeah, went through counseling, which has been like a giant self-help program for me. It's really been wonderful. Uh, and I, yeah, I'm hoping to integrate the two actually.
The
So,
integrate like the mountain and counseling, guiding and
yeah,
counseling is
yeah. So, one of the things I want to do is start small group, like 3-day rock climbing course where I take, let's say, a group of mothers who are working out their issues with having kids with autism, for example, or something like that. And I teach them all the skills of how to set up top ropes, and so they can all get together whenever they want afterwards. They have an activity they can do, but really it's just sort of like introducing them to each other, working out how to deal with this issue in their lives, helping them understand how much they're not alone and what the stigma involved is. And and then also in a healthy environment, right? So, and something where, they're getting some self-care in the process. So that's just one example, but I think I really like working with groups, small groups. And so I think that, doing group work on skis or in the rock, in the mountains in any capacity can be really healing for people. And yeah, so I'm hoping to expand that. Right now I'm just starting a counseling, like I literally just started like last week, so I
Okay. Yeah, but you have this
just
plan. Yeah.
yes, yes, and I have like specialties. I work a lot with um, difficult family dynamics, relationships, divorces, domestic violence, working with kids with neurodiversities, um, trauma, addictions. Um, yeah, even,
Well, those were like hard cases.
yeah, they are.
So right now well, you just started, so right now it's more say talking counseling kind of talking therapy kind of thing,
Yeah,
or okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So like, the classic 1 hour sessions.
I see.
Yeah.
And then eventually you hope that you can bring in the backcountry or rock cliff or stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And actually, that remind me, I read this paragraph from article that I found online that, uh, well, so it's, I think I found this article from your Arcteryx profile. And so you mentioned, well, this is a quote that you mentioned that the quote is, to be honest, a lot of my guiding missions, expeditions throughout the years have felt like therapy. Uh,
Mm.
so is that like how you want? So that's why you think that you can weave that experience together with this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do. I think that there's a lot of therapeutic elements to um, being in the mountains, and even pushing ourselves in the mountains, because I think when we're slightly pushed, when we're slightly scared, or even just physically um, pushing our limits, it sort of mimics a trauma response. And so like you're activated, your heart's beating, and it's a really special opportunity to be able to deal with that trauma response and like learn how to deal with it calmly and without overreacting to it. So I think that a lot of what happens with trauma is that we'll kind of get activated in that like fight, flight, freeze response. And and it's so uncomfortable. We need to get out of it right away. And so we try and avoid. And um,
yeah,
when we're in that state in the mountains, we can learn and teach ourselves, oh, there are reasons sometimes when I get activated, and it doesn't have to have that same, it's actually not dangerous. Like I can do this. This makes sense. I can keep moving. I can, right? And so it's like a way to kind of work with your own nervous system and help it to um, come into a more regulated state. And so
I see. So there will be like the parallel or similarity between these two experiences, and if they can overcome this in this environment, then they can bring back to the real life.
yeah, exactly. And then there's just the fact that it's just such a great environment for talking, like walking and talking. I feel like a lot of the times I'm ski touring, we get into real stuff, like we're having real conversations, because
Yeah,
yeah, it's a nice environment, and it's a um, good time to be reflective when you're in fresh air and
yeah.
surrounded by beautiful glaciers and
Yeah,
mountains.
that remind me that when I just started guiding, I found that having conversation with people is actually my biggest challenge. Is just like, okay, I don't know this person, I don't know their culture, I don't know a lot of things. I was like, well, they didn't teach me how to do this thing. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's like actually a challenge, but what a neat thing to like have the opportunity to be open to people and learn things from them, right? And learn other ways to live or other perspectives. And
yeah,
yeah, I've learned a lot from my guests throughout the years.
nice.
And yeah, that's actually another piece for me, is like trying to kind of decolonize guiding a little bit. Like, I think we've had a big kind of like, we're one entitlement, like we're entitled to the mountains, we're entitled to like this activity and this pursuit, and also like that summit hunger, and also a little bit of elitism in the sport. And I really think that sometimes that elitism has caused some forms of exclusion to some people. Like, just some people think that they can't do the sport because it seems like it's like a white male only sort of, in all the
Yes.
photos. And, they're changing that. Like, Arcteryx has a lot of diversity things happen.
Nice. Yeah.
A lot of people are changing all of these. Um, but it's slow to change. And so, I still think that, most of my clients throughout the years have been, you know, wealthier, middle-aged white men,
Mm-hmm.
It isn't a bad thing. It's wonderful. I've enjoyed all my time with these people, but I also think that it would be lovely to have it be more open to other,
Yes.
just for people from any culture, background, colors, orientations, to feel like, oh yeah, I could see me doing that. Let's go do
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Yeah, certainly. And I have a question on that note. Also, from the same article, you have this phrase that you use. You say this mindful self compassion, and you also compare that with self esteem. And you mentioned that mindful
Oh yeah.
self compassion is the most beautiful concept. Um, and self esteem is often what we think we are going after, but self esteem is conditional. So I kind of like, I would love you to elaborate on that
Mhm.
comparison and what your definition of these two terms.
Mhm. Well, I'd have to reference Kristen Neff for that. She wrote the book Mindful Self-Compassion, and I really seriously recommend it to anyone. Um, I think actually a lot of my work as a counselor is just like all the various ways we can access self-compassion to heal. I think that actually a lot of what we've done in our internally is, we think that we can motivate ourselves through punishing ourselves, and we often can be our own worst enemy. And actually, like, no one knows ourselves better than ourselves, and so only us can be the best friends to ourselves, because no one else really fully understands us. And so, uh, yeah, to thrive and to be truly resilient, I think we need self compassion rather than, and because, okay, self compassion is based on the idea that like everybody in our culture and society is going to have ups and downs in life. So it's normal to have a bad day, year, week. Um, we're all just in various levels of this hard thing called life, right? And so you begin with this sense that there's common humanity, and then realizing that if you have self-esteem, that's great, but self-esteem is going to be this sense that like, oh, I'm really confident because I'm really good at this, right? But you're not always going to be good at everything. And so self-compassion is this ability to be like, oh, wow, like I really struggled with that today, or I didn't do that perfectly. So I need to um, give myself some grace and say, oh, well, I'll do better tomorrow. So in my world, or in my perspective, I think that if you have self-compassion rather than self-esteem, you're more likely to actually see clearly your mistakes, because you're not going to be like punishing yourself for your mistakes, which hurts and causes you to yeah, maybe have shame or some sort of feeling that you want to avoid. But if you have self-compassion, you can actually look more clearly at yeah, say in a guiding day how you performed, and you can error correct rather than doubling down on your errors, right? Like some
That's just say,
people
oh, I did
would
it so wrong. Yeah.
would maybe make an error and then be like, no, I didn't do that. No, I would never do that. And that's like a lack of being capable of making errors. So just realizing that we all err, and that like in the guiding world, error correction is a really big thing. And also destigmatizing errors, like in a lot of industries, that's a really big thing, is just getting to a point in our industry where we can share mistakes and accidents with each other without being like,
Why did you do that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just understanding that, like, we're all gonna have ups and downs, and yeah.
Yeah. I guess I never really think about this conditional sense of self-esteem is based on probably many assumptions. Uh, yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. I like
Mm.
that. So it seems like in a sense, what I get away just like, well, be comfortable of who I am,
Mm.
and but don't over punish myself, because realize that's like a natural state that people just gonna have this wavy flow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You'll have good days and bad days, and when we struggle, if we punish ourselves, if we like beat ourselves up, you're more likely to feel um, strong negative emotions like shame or whatever, and then you're more likely to avoid it, and then not address the problem and not address the pattern and repeat it, right? So I think, we think that the only way we're going to motivate ourselves to change or to do better is to punish ourselves, and I disagree. We do better by um, you know gently loving ourselves and being able to really see clearly.
And so, with this new counseling business or career, do you see yourself would dial down on the traditional guiding a little bit, or
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah. I'm not stopping. I'm still doing a full Whistler Heli ski season this winter, and
right?
um, yeah, I can't. Well, maybe one day I'll stop doing traditional guiding, but I don't know.
I
I
mean,
still am for money.
I mean, I
And because I
certainly,
love it,
yeah.
and because
Mm-hmm.
it's just what I do. And so, I'm mixing them both up right now and doing a little of both separately, and ideally one day I'll do them both together.
More like integrated.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, um, then I kind of want to ask. Well, guiding life also have up and downs, I think. Um, what would you say? I am kind of from the conversation, I'm assuming is your love of mountains and your love of people kind of keep you
Mm.
in this industry. So, what else that you enjoy about guiding?
Mm. I like feeling good in my body, and I think that, like, guiding has kept me fit, especially with those early years of parenting. I think it can be really hard because women, mothers, fathers too, are so overwhelmed with the sudden demands and stressors in their lives that it's hard to fit in exercise. whereas my work is exercise. So I actually didn't ever recreate, like almost ever. Like I had way fewer recreation days for myself. But thank goodness my guiding days gave me my fitness. And so I just enjoyed that. I enjoyed that like my guiding days are so similar to a recreation day, and it just kept me getting out there. And um, yeah, so that's actually a big one, is just the fitness level. And then I think facilitating getting other people into the mountains has been like, for me, I've needed purpose. And I think one of the things, I think we all need purpose in our lives. And sometimes guiding has felt like there's a little less purpose. Like, for example, in COVID, we were like non essential workers, you know? So there's this like, that's like such a little like, oh, well, bummer.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
and then just the sense that you're working with a lot of very privileged people. Like I work with a lot of people who have a lot of money a lot of the time. Um and like wanting to do, I think working with like my desire to do more. Like I've loved working with like at-risk youth or big city mountaineers or She Moves Mountains even, right? Like all these organizations have given me more purpose throughout the years. But um I think just the general sense that I'm bringing people into this beautiful place and showing how we can engage with it in a way that improves all of us.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting to hear that you say the guiding can help you to keep your fitness, because so from some of the other guys and also like myself included, I felt that guiding actually conflict with my personal climbing goals, because I
Oh yeah.
can't achieve, say, because I'm so tired I can't train, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm trying to maintain
Mm-hmm.
this level, but I'm not. Probably it's very hard for me to improve
Mm-hmm.
to the next level. That's kind of what I'm trying
Yeah,
to
yeah,
say.
yeah.
Would you ever thought that way or?
Yeah, you need lots of hangboards. You put hangboards on every door frame in your house.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you'll still beat yourself up for not ever hanging on them. Yeah, that's yes, yes. I mean, I keep general fitness, and
Mm-hmm.
that's, my standards have changed because I have kids a little bit.
Right. Yes.
Like I'm generally fit, but yeah, I'm not like 5'13" fit, you know. So uh I just have to sometimes, and I do very often, just kind of cope with the fact that, oh yeah, my fingers aren't going to be pulling me up my project today.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Um, but yeah, I think with a really good, so my friend Madeline Sorkin was just here. I was just totally loving, you should interview her too. Um, she was putting me on a bit of a training program. It's just finger fit. It's fingers. Like I just need to, yeah, do more fingerboarding, I think, because you can, yeah, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
luckily,
I don't
yeah.
just guide for fitness. I also do train, and you know, I give myself an hour a day every day.
Okay, I see. Yeah, a
Yeah.
good thing
So it's not
fingerboarding
like I'm
doesn't
not,
take that long.
yeah. And then I don't beat myself up when I don't, because I can't, because life gets busy and
Right. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So,
Realistic.
but
Yeah.
but I think that's actually one of the things about guiding that I've liked. It's not that just guiding keeps me fit. It's that I have to stay fit for guiding. So I always justify it as part of my work to get my 1 hour in every day. And sometimes
Oh.
my 1 hour is short. It's like a short hour. It's like, my 33-minute run. So it's like I just do what I can and I fit in little bits here and there. And so yeah, guiding, just the fact that my job requires that I'm super fit keeps me training. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I like that you said that even you don't do, say, if you say 1 hour, don't do it for 1 hour. Don't beat yourself up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
good.
And that took some time. Yeah.
Nice. And then
Yeah.
I actually have some listeners' questions. This is actually the first time I finally got listeners' questions. I'm pretty excited.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So
All right.
we actually already went through some of them during our conversation, but we haven't gotten this one. So the listener asks that what climbing route is her most work for and the proudest accomplishment?
Mm, okay, that's nice. I like that question. Um, I feel like that question is something that's like in my future.
In your
Because,
future. Nice.
yeah, like that was actually one of the things Madeline Sorkin really inspired me. The movie that Hannah, her partner, made of the route on the diamond and just the amount of work it took. That was actually one of the conversations we kept having is that I don't put a ton of work into my routes because of I've put a ton of work into my getting my master's of counseling recently and my children recently. Um, but I do work for things and I have been very proud of various routes. So like that's a good question and I kind of want to give it a good answer. It's going to take me a minute to think about. Um, hmm. I mean, I think actually I just climbed a route Sundog with my girlfriend Lisa in the Waddington Range. And like I didn't work at it. So I guess that doesn't quite, but I had to work to get there. And it was just a classic example of like what I love about climbing. So we're in the Waddington Range, no one else is around. Um, and this route has been climbed like, I don't know, two or three times. I have no idea, but not a lot. And the weather was kind of swirling. It's really committing. It's going to take all day. It's in weird early season conditions. There was ice and snow all over it. And um, I think the technical difficulty was like 11A or something. So like not super hard, but um, all of the climbing and the route finding was super hard. And I had two like totally broken fingers. So I Tim Emmett taught me how to fix it, how to deal with bad fingers. He's like, just tape it completely solid. So I had like tape everywhere, just like solid fingers. So I couldn't really use my fingers, and we're like in and out of mountain boots and rock shoes, and there's like kind of blood everywhere, and we're going for it, and we trust each other, and some of the leads were just taking so long because like you're like sort of like having to you think this is the route, but then there's a waterfall on it, so then you're avoiding it, and then it's suddenly 512 and with loose rock and sandy rock. And I think just like facilitating an experience like that, and all it takes to even get there and just to be strong enough, and then to like realize in the moment, oh well, my fingers aren't amazing, I've sliced open my hand, we're just kind of giving her with all we have in the moment. I think that was that's sort of one of my, yeah, favorite experiences.
Nice. I mean, you
Yeah.
you said it so calmly, but I know how much skills that's involving all this short section.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah. 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 It was a lot. There was like, yeah, we had to kind of aid climb through some weird ice chimneys and,
wow,
um, yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And and then and this question say how does she get boundaries between her personal and guide life, or do they intermesh?
Yeah. That's a good question. There's so many different ways to interpret that question. So I wonder how to. um, how to put that out there. I think it's like a weird thing. Sometimes I find like one way to interpret that question is like, do you find yourself guiding your friends and do you ever want to charge them for it or something like that? Or what happens when you're guiding friends over and over, or guiding people, your clients, and then you become friends, and how do you deal with that? And I, I think it's actually a little easier than with counseling. I'm just entering like a really tricky one, um, where we call those dual relationships. It's it's a complex thing. Um, yeah, so that's one way to interpret that question, and I think it's just like in general, I try and acknowledge and accept the fact that like I need to be paid for my work. So when I'm working, I get paid for it. And then other times I find myself I'm out with friends on a route that I normally guide because they're less experienced, and that's okay. Like I still treat that's recreation, and I actually conduct myself differently and enjoy ourselves. And then the other way is just like, how do I balance guiding and personal climbing? And I don't. I often like don't recreate enough anymore because I do too much.
Yeah, you have so much on your plate right now.
Yeah. I mean, I still do when I try to, and I have these wonderful moments where it seems like everything's working out and it's blissful. But what I've been doing lately is I had just been going to the climbing gym, and it's summer and there's nice weather, and it's like it's kind of pathetic, but I'm just like, you know what? Sometimes I need to have my exercise fit into my 1 hour slot because I'm working, and I'm just too busy to go sport climbing for a whole half day, or do a multi pitch for a whole day, or right. So I really love half day climbing. That's one of the things I've been doing a lot of. Um,
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I see. Let me just flip through my notes really quick that to see. Let's see.
I want to ask you questions, but
Oh,
I
me? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah. Are you in Seattle right now?
No, I was in Seattle for the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
came back, so I live in Las Vegas, so I guy in Red Rock mostly.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And see. So I'm curious about that. So you set out to wanting to be a guy very early on, right? Have you, when you were a kid, have you ever thought about some other profession that you might want to take on?
When I was a kid, I wanted to save the dolphins.
Serve the dolphins, yeah.
I wanted to like be on the Greenpeace ship.
Oh,
And yeah, I actually did do like I mean that I think is why I studied environmental science in
oh, okay.
university. And in a way, like I just wanted to um, help humans balance their needs with environmental protections, and so that was kind of a big goal for me up until I think I became more compelled. I mean, I still am have those goals, right? But I think the bigger issues kind of started coming up in my life of just like other human suffering. So that's partly the counseling.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh gosh, I what else did I want to do? I guess I really wanted to be a guide, and I guided. It's almost my only job ever. Um, I guess I was a waitress for a little while. But yeah, in terms of big goals and dreams, it was like that, and then the lawyering, and then
Right. And now the
counseling.
counseling. Yeah.
Mhm.
Nice. I mean, to be honest, I didn't, it's not like I have any expectation of what this conversation is gonna be, but I just I enjoy it a lot. You are such a warm and wonderful person. You said it as is, but it involved um, a lot of hardship there. And
Mm.
I have to say that uh, I heard some like early stories about you, and I was just like, wow, maybe this person Julia is like she did all the things. Maybe she has a very strong personality, but not at all. Then I was like, oh, it's so nice to talk with you.
It's nice to talk to you too.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I also always like this. These two questions I ask for all everybody is so for your guiding career. So not just your personal climbing or skiing careers. Like, uh, sorry, it's kind of cliche, but I kind of also want to know what is the proudest moment of your guiding
Okay.
career. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Hmm. Hmm. You almost have to like separate it into decades or something for me. Because there have been
I
lots of
know.
proud moments
Yeah,
throughout the years.
you can tell me like a couple, maybe the
Yeah,
early one
yeah,
or the recent one, maybe.
yeah, yeah. Because like yeah, the early ones were like just kind of establishing myself and my confidence and getting over that imposter syndrome and so like just I think being honored with like running a 12-day mountaineering course in Alaska or that kind of thing like and then doing a really good job like that that was yeah that was maybe and that was after my lung surgery. um I remember that being a really good trip and it led to like clients seeking me out afterwards and wanting me to take them, to other places in the world and that was really wonderful. So I think that's one of them is just like showing people a really good time in a very remote area, picking objectives and getting them to lots of summits and infecting them with major climbing bugs. So yeah, that I think that was one of them, that 12-day mountaineering course that, oh gosh, it must have been like 2007 or 8, or it was before I had kids. That was a big one for me because I had just done an exam and I was just at the top of my game and really into showing people a good time in the mountains. And then recently, I actually, mm, well, I could say a bunch. One with heli skiing. With heli skiing hasn't been my like primary thing. I've mostly been a ski touring mountain guide. Um, and so I've started taking more full-time work with Whistler Heli in the last couple of years. And it's such a different pace. It's extremely fast-paced, a lot going on, entering into terrain really quickly, having to choose runs that are going to, work for guests. And um, I really kind of am learning a lot really fast and starting to um, gain enough skills so that I feel like I can do a really good job at that is fun. And just knowing all the runs and the terrain, it's a huge tenure. And I really like that as well because it's working with a team. And so it's fun. It's interesting and fun to work with different dynamic personalities and a lot of mentors of mine that have been very welcoming and taking me under their wing and taught me lots. So yeah, I think that's something I'm really proud of. And then the other thing I'm proud of is um, a couple of trips I ran uh, ski touring at a kokanee cabin. And I remember I started this one trip. I had 15 guests and I was like so intimidated. They were all like ski patrollers and whatnot. And a bunch of them had actually already been there before. And they ended up being kind of my best friends. So, it was, and it was a really wonderful experience and time and just approaching that terrain with the right amount of humility and realizing that I really could trust myself as a guide, that I can enter terrain sight unseen and guide people safely through it and have a really good time in the process. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think those kinds of things were big moments in my guiding career.
Nice.
Most recently, I really loved working with She Moves Mountains. That
Ah,
organization has been really fun. That was good. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I probably should also interview uh, Lizzie too,
Yep.
as she
Yeah.
moves
Yeah.
mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Gee,
then there's other things that I'm getting, um, you know, learning more with. I've been starting to do some mountain rescue training with search and rescue teams here
oh,
in the local area, and that's been really fun and a good technical challenge for me as I learn more about where they're coming from with the standards required for their um, rescue systems. And
nice.
yeah, so that's
And so if say the listeners listen to this episode, and then if they can only take one thing away, say, what would you wish that they take away?
mm. Well, I think just work towards self-compassion.
Self compassion.
Yeah, I think to me that's like the biggest thing. And self-compassion and compassion for others. It's both. So to me, the purpose of life, I'm going to give like the big life wisdom is to work towards grace. And grace is defined as balancing the needs of yourself with the needs of others. And that's a dynamic process. It's always going to look different. But some of us have a problem of not elevating our own needs into our lives and awareness and balances, and others have problems sometimes with the other. Really, we all have problems probably with both sometimes, but um, that to me is the highest goal of mine, as opposed to like just happiness or growth. It's it's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Um, yeah, it's wonderful. And I know that you have the counseling business coming up. Well, it's just started.
Yes.
So, and also you're still guiding, obviously. You don't really do that much social media, right? So, what if people want to find
Yeah.
you? I'm
Yes.
just wondering that whether you have anything
Yes.
that people can find you on.
Yep. I just started a website. Just it's very, very basic for both counseling and guiding. I'm now fully insured with both, and people can just hire me directly if they want to. Um, I'm calling my counseling and guiding business Mountain Mindset.
Mountain
Um,
Mindset. Okay, so
Mountain
the
Mindset.
website will be
So, well, the
mountainmindset.com.
URL website is actually julianiles.ca. So it's
Oh,
very
okay.
simple, just julianiles.ca. But then you'll get to my Mountain Mindset counseling and guiding
I see.
webpage. And I am meaning to link more through my Facebook page and my Instagram. My Instagram is julia.niles. So yeah, I'll post a link up there soon.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm not very good with social media. I should be better. I know that but I think yeah,
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 I mean, I'm
complex.
also, yeah,
I think just like
yeah,
how much, yeah, I have kids. I want to post about my kids, but then like maybe that's, you know, invading their privacy, especially now that they're
mm,
entering their teenage years. And then, I don't want to, yeah, I
right.
just,
Definitely. I mean, this how much and what you share is always also another balance.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I should share more though. I have a lot of, um, yeah, neat parts of life I'd like to share. So maybe I'll get better.
Definitely, because I think a lot of people want to know. Your
Mhm.
stories are very good. It's very inspiring. Yeah. And yeah, so thank you so much for your time. I feel so honored to interview you, and then I'll follow up with a little material I need to post this online through email and everything. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. I think
Oh,
it's really neat, actually. And I was nervous. I don't always just like, talk super eloquently, but I I think it's really beautiful to just elevate the female voices. And also I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts, and just the understanding the issues that come up for us female guides is huge, and just working towards, I think, and hopefully changing the industry and normalizing female guides, and like, even just like wearing tights. I love that. I'm just like, yes, we need that discussion. Like, it needs to be okay for us to wear what fits our bodies. And, for
I
so long,
oh, thank you for telling me that, because at that time when we listened to that paragraph, I was just like, well, we are talking about the clothes, but so I wasn't sure that whether that was a good
mhm.
paragraph to put in there. But
No,
then
I
I
think
just
it's
said,
so good. It's so good. And for me, I'm like, I come from a very privileged position. I'm white, and I'm cisgendered, and you know, I am female though, so I can see what oppression feels like, and I can just only imagine it's been more challenging for, you know, lots of us women, especially in other positions. And I also really appreciate the um, body shaming in the
yeah,
culture, climate culture issues, and working towards really opening our minds to understanding that we all can be climbers, and really, yeah, we should
definitely.
we should
Yeah.
not work towards a norm. We should work towards difference
Yeah. I mean, the
and
diversity is
celebrating
beautiful.
diversity. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you so much. It made me feel like I'm actually doing something really good.
You are
Yeah.
doing something really, really good, and just recording these voices. And the fact that I can listen to Amy Barnes speak anytime
I
is just
was,
the biggest gift that you ever have given the world. Thank you so much for
yeah,
that.
I was so sad
Yeah.
hearing that news. And the funny thing, not should I should not say funny thing. The thing is, I was editing her podcast. I almost accidentally delete, and I was just like, no, I lost my work, and then I found out that I still have the original file, so I have to re-edit. But I was just like, oh
Oh,
my god, I was
oh,
so devastated. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, so
yeah. I'm heading to her memorial
yeah,
on Thursday. I'm going to Jackson. So.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you didn't delete though.
I mean, I was like, oh my god, no. Uh, and I found the very very original file because I was editing the file and somehow my computer just froze. So then I couldn't recover the edited version.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah, that
yeah,
must have cost you some time.
yeah. But time was not an issue. I was just so worried that I lost all this
Yeah,
wonderful thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Whew.
yeah. Well, if I'm ever in Vegas, I would love to get in touch and go climbing if
For
you're
sure.
interested. I'll
Yeah.
I'll train up my fingers so I can keep up with
I
you.
don't know. You are like probably still climb harder than I climb. But
I
anyway.
really want to go and free climb Rainbow Wall. I haven't done that.
Oh yeah. I mean, we should go do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'd be really
That would be
fun.
a fun one.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I've tried before, but
I did it once. I didn't free it though.
nice.
So that's still a
Awesome.
goal too. Hmm.
Awesome. Okay. Well, take care, and
Yeah.
hope you have a good week. And
And you too. Yeah.
yeah.
Safe travels.